All right, I am live. It says, hello, hello. Testing the comments chat here. Can you see me? Can you hear me? Salah says, yeah. Does that mean that we're live and we're happening? Yay! Look at that. We did it. We did it. Together, we did it. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you for confirming, everyone. So obviously, as you can see, the chat is working. If you have questions that you want to make sure to put in the chat, put them there. I'm going to try to keep my eye on it, but I'll be sharing for part of this. So, hello, my name is Amber Flame. I am the program director at Hedgebrook. I am also an alum. I was there this time of year in 2017. As I was getting prepared, I was looking back and going, "Oh, look, there's all my other applications, all those years I didn't get in." So I'd love to start with that and just let you know that it is so worth it. It is always worth it. You learn so much about yourself, about your art, about how to talk about it, and about what maybe even you intend to do with it by writing these applications. I still regularly and always apply to residency time. It changes your life, and Hedgebrook is especially life transformational. So I cannot more highly recommend that you apply and keep applying for Hedgebrook until you get it, because it is worth it. I am going to do it a little bit different than other info sessions. If you've checked out our YouTube channel, you'll see that it hasn't been every year, but there's been quite a few little info sessions like this for the applications opening. Applications have changed. And so we definitely wanted to do an updated one, but there's lots of good information in those. If you're the kind of person who takes comfort and inspiration in having as much advice and info as you can, those other sessions are literally like an hour of questions and answers, my suggestions to you, my best guesses when I didn't know, and the I'll find outs that came along. So I am so glad you are here. It looks like we have almost 90 people listening in. Once again, my name is Amber Flame, and we're going to start with taking a look at the actual, I'm going to share my screen. We're going to take a look at the actual application. Once again, if you have questions, like Salah just did, drop them in the chat and we will get to those very shortly. But first, I wanted to take a look at this with you. So when you log in, as you can see, where am I completed? I gotta just show you. There's some of my early applications. When you log in, you'll be at the directory and you can decide what genre to apply in. So just right here, let's stop and talk about it. The genre that you should apply in should be the one that you have the strongest, most confident work in. So maybe it's the one that you know you're known for, and you have already published work in that field, or you have many, many years in that field. For me, right now, I'm learning how to write fiction. But that is not the genre I would apply in. If I was applying to Hedgebrook, I would apply in poetry because I have strong work in poetry. I know that I'm going to be read by poets, and we will talk about where I would talk about that fiction part. But you want to decide based on where you have the strongest work sample, because that is going to put you in the pool of readers and then judges in that category. So your playwriting is going to be read by playwrights. Your poetry is going to be read by poets. So you don't want to, apply as a poet, but then give a writing sample that is in fiction, unless you are making a really, really strong case for how they bridge. But you have such a limited amount of writing sample space. I would encourage you to submit your strongest writing sample. And we'll talk about why as we go along. So we're going to go ahead and look at a poetry application. Let me dismiss this. Okay, so the deadline is April 14th. That means that you have 2 months, not 1 month, 2 months. As we get closer to the deadline, that fee goes up. Also, fee waivers are a first come, first serve. You do not need to tell us the story of why. You can just request a fee waiver, and we will give them until we don't have them anymore to give. As you know, this is our mission right here. We have a saying that often writers don't read. So I'm going to encourage you. There's always information. We're trying to not be just overly repetitive, but I'm going to encourage you to really understand what HedgeBrick is for and where HedgeBrick is. All of that is going to be important in deciding whether this is the residency space for you. Because the application takes commitment, I would encourage you to be very, very sure that this is what you want to do. Your job as an applicant, this is where I want to start. Your job as an applicant is to convey to the readers your passion for the project you propose to work on in the residence. That's your artist statement. That, by the way, is where I would talk about that fiction project that I'm really, really excited about and stepping into. Your skill and ability to do your work as a writer, that's your writing sample. That is why you are showing your strongest writing that you have. And then your diversity of voice. We're going to talk about what that means. Diversity of voice does not mean necessarily diversity of identity. It may mean diversity of kind of story. I've never heard of a story like this before, or I've never heard of this device being used in this way. It could mean that the circumstances of the writer's life are really particularly moving and inspirational to the adjudicators. So diversity of voice is really a chance for you to think about how your voice is both in conversation and with who, but also what you are trying to say that is different and why. And we'll go into that a little bit more. So as you can see right here, $45 for submissions received through the beginning of April, and then it goes up to $55. Reminder that this is a free to writers residency. This is the only thing that we ask you to pay for. There's no deposit. You have to pay to get there, but other than that, your time on the land is free to you. And this is a huge part of how we support that is through our application fees. We would love to waive them all. We do have fee waivers available for the first 50 people on a first come, first serve basis. So if you want to know about the guidelines, anything like that, you can click there, but we're going to go ahead and look at the application. All right. So in the artist statement, this is a chance to tell us more about you, the project you plan to work on, and why you want a HedgeBrick residency. So this is where I would go into that fiction that I'm trying to write and why I want to write it and why I think HedgeBrick would be a great place for me to dig in. So what are the issues and ideas and subject matters that inspire your creative process? Briefly describe the project you'd be working on while in a HedgeBrick residency. You are not stuck to that. Nobody is going to come back and be like, in your application, you said you were going to work on this. I'm going to need to see your pages. Nobody's checking for that. So this can change. What about this particular project are you passionate about and why is it important now? And make a compelling case for why HedgeBrick. This is a tricky one. I think people get stuck up on this. I get stuck on this in other applications. I got stuck on it in this application. It's hard to feel like you have to try to find a new way to say, because time and space is so valuable and I don't have it because I'm a parent, because I'm a because it feels a little bit like you're like, doesn't everybody need this? And the answer is truly yes. But also we want you to know what it is about the tug of the creative process now for you that is feeling so urgent. And it might be that this is where you get to say, hey, I'm a caretaker for my elderly parents, or I am raising young children, and this would be the first time I could commit to writing in 3 years, or whatever it is. Don't worry about it being the standout answer. Worry about it being the authentic and really, truly heartfelt answer. We also want to know how you work in community, what kind of advocacy you do, what kind of activism you might be involved in, what kind of teaching or professional development or mentorship that you might offer. And that's a chance for here. I have been learning a lot by going to info sessions for other residency programs, for applying for things myself. And one of the things that I just recently picked up that I'm gonna share with you is it seems that it's better or it's more effective to use all of these segments to weave together one focused and cohesive story. And what I mean by that is I am a multi-genre artist. As I just said, I'm known as a poet. I write fiction. I have a band. I had to, and I used to use this space to kind of try to show the broad scope, and that is a tactic. And I have gotten residencies, but I'm now trying this thing of where I'm using all of this to really further hone and refine the one project that I'm really really passionate about, that I really can just vibe out on for all of these and say this is why this project, this is why now, this is why at Hedgebrook, and to really um, have it be more focused. I think it might be easier for the readers and adjudicators to get a sense of one thing than to try to hold the scope of all the things. So that is a suggestion. You can throw that out with the bathwater if it doesn't work for you. Like I said, I've gotten residencies where I wasn't super focused in this artist statement segment, but this is a chance for you to tell the most about what you're working on. You know how like the new thing you're writing is often the most exciting thing. You're like, yeah, I have old poems, but this new one that I wrote today is like my baby, right? So this is a chance to really kind of show how excited and passionate you are um about the project that you want to bring, and then how it ties into the rest of your life. What else you do that has made this so important to you? Maybe this is directly connected to the kind of mentorship or teaching that you're doing in the world right now. Then you're going to get to some information about yourself as an artist. This is where you once again, you're encouraged to apply in the genre where you are most skilled. Your work sample should match the genre that you're clicking here. But you get a chance to say, I've also done all this other cool stuff. So we want to know that full scope of your life. And then you go into publications and productions. So you're listing up to 5. And this is also a chance to think broadly. We want to support emerging artists. We encourage our readers, we encourage our judges to be looking for a range of both established and emerging writers. And so if you don't have like publications and productions, if you're like when I first started, it was slam performances, slam poetry performances. That's all I had. And that's okay. Um, you do the best you can to fill this out, but you let us know like, hey, this is where I've tried to put my work out into the world. This is who's seen my work. Awards and recognitions, once again, the same thing. You might not have, I think it was once again like finalist in the Grand Slam in Seattle or something like that. So if you don't have a lot there, that's okay. You can say, I was selected for, like I joined a workshop. I was selected for a workshop and I had to submit writing sample. It might be that simple. But you can list up to 5. We want to know if you've been resident in other artist communities, if this is your first residency, and if you've applied before. All of this is pretty standard. That does remind me, though, you should have your application in the name that you want to be called. This is not a formal government form. You do not have to have your government name. This information should be accurate to your government ID. But, you know, your pronouns, your cultural heritage, those are things that you're not, we want to know because we want to know the range of places people are applying from and hearing about Hedgebrook from. We're a global organization. We have people from all over the world who come to Hedgebrook, and also don't dead name yourself, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So if you're like, I really want to only be known by this name, then tell us that name. Do your application in that name. It's up to you. It's your choice there. Okay, let's talk about community experience a little bit. We want to know what your community is. We also want to know how you feel about being in a cottage in a woods by yourself. Is that something that you're going to need support around? Is that something that you've? This is really actually just. Are you thinking about what you're applying for? And that's why we wanted to share this application too early on. Hedgebrook, as you experienced with me on Tuesday, does not have very consistent internet. It is definitely rural. It is not far from a big city, but it is across. There's a ferry ride or a long drive around. It does not have a very culturally diverse, uh, um, like on the like community on the island itself. There's lots of things to consider whether this is a good place for you to experience solitude and community. Um, some of my most wonderful and beautiful friendships have been ones that I've made with Hedgebrook alum, and especially the people I was in residency with back in 2017. Been in contact with them ever since. They are my readers. We've done recommendation letters for each other. I was so fortunate that I made deep, lifelong friendships with some of the people that I was in residency with. That is not necessarily going to be your experience. We hope that you have a wonderful experience with your cohort, and that farmhouse table every evening is lively with discussions and wonderful experiences together. And it might be a really slow and solid, full of a time full of solitude for you. You might find that actually you're really, really into your project and you just want to return to your cottage and write. You might find that other people are really, really just wanting to return to their cottage and write. And so the only expectation is that you show up for dinner at the farmhouse table with your cohort, and this is time and space for you to be creative. That's no that's all we are hoping that we are holding space and offering for you. And alongside that might come some really, really beautiful friendships. And so we want to know what your experience is living and working in an artist community, if you've had any. Um, if you haven't had any in an artist community, think about this last question instead. What community role and setting do you thrive in? So, do you find yourself somebody who wants to be alone a lot? Are you somebody who actually needs that sense of like, oh, I know where the people around me are. I know what's happening in this space around me. We've had people who felt most comfortable leaving their cottage every morning and coming down to the public space just to be around people. And they didn't know that until they were in residency. So it's a chance to reflect on that and also share with us. It's not a big deciding factor unless there's something where it's like, this person says they're scared of the dark. You're going to be alone in the dark. Maybe that's a little bit of a red flag there for you. Have you grown or educated yourself in pursuit of your writing and or creative life? So this question I love. I will absolutely confess that we adapted it from another residency's application. So we got rid of resumes and CVs. They're optional. You can submit one if you want. If you have one, you do not have to. And what this does instead is show us how you are committed to your creative practice. What ways are you learning and pushing yourself? What ways, who are you reading and who are you in conversation with? What questions do you ask? Um, we always want to know if an alumna is spreading the word. It's always good. We ask them if they're spreading the word when they apply to be our adjudicators. So let us know how you heard about us, of course. And then, this is really real. It is hard to know. Like, time is funny. It changes so quickly. Everything changes so quickly. How do I know? Of course, I want to stay for the longest time possible. Can you really take the time off of work? It might be wonderful to be in a space where your meals are being provided for you, but if you have to worry about like jumping on Zoom meetings throughout the day, that's not going to be great. So really take some time to consider what you can get away and really truly give yourself the time for. A 2-week residency is actually a 12-night stay. There's an arrival on Thursday and a departure on Tuesdays. 3 weeks is actually a 19-night stay. Um, We're going to go with your first choice of dates. That's where Miria, who should be on the chats somewhere and watching for questions, that's where she's going to begin. She's going to begin right here with the what information you put in. So this is like really, really consider, especially your first, second, and third, because we're going to try to put you in one of those first. And if you're like, actually, that's changed and I'm no longer able to come for whatever reason, like if you think something might be coming that way, maybe don't put it as your first choice. And we're going to work with you, but it's going to get trickier as everybody else gets locked in, essentially. Excuse me. We are trying our best to address accessibility as much as possible. We have a lot of different tools and a lot of different updates that we have made recently to update our accessibility, the accessibility of our buildings and our spaces. If you have accessibility needs, we want to know about them. So please let us know so we can prepare as best as possible to host you. All right, here we are at the writing samples, right? So once again, do not download your document from Google Drive as flame_poems 2025 or something. Take your name off of the writing sample. Take your name off of the writing sample. Take your name off of the writing sample. It's the silliest reason to be early eliminated. Take your name off the writing sample. Like, right before you hit submit, go through every single thing and just make sure that it's anonymous. The main thing is this: the community gets smaller every day. People know people. It is supposed to be a blind adjudication, and that will eliminate you. So be anonymous. Make sure that your name, there are no hyperlinks. Like, follow these sample instructions. They're really, really important. Submit your best work. People are like 7 to 10 poems total. Does that mean that I should submit no more? You're like, should I submit my long poem? Should I submit my, I don't know. I don't submit the stuff you think will just knock their socks off. That is your job. Knock their socks off. Give your best work. We've heard everything from like, oh, it's really cool to see a succession of poems that like build something, to different samples, and seeing the wide variety is great. I don't think that there is a wrong way to do this other than to decide that this is the place to experiment and show works in progress. This is not the place to experiment and show works in progress. This is the place to show your best work. All right. You're going to click things. You're going to confirm it's your stuff. And once again, must be anonymous. Please make sure as you're adding media, add on it, save it, go back, double check. Okay. I have gotten so much more careful. I can't even tell you. I wish I could tell you how many times it's like, oh, I said, here are 3 poems when actually it was 5 poems. Or here are, like, you get into a flow, take the time. It's worth it. This is also a beautiful, what you just done by filling out this application is giving yourself a beautiful, cohesive representation of who and where you are as an artist right now. Yeah. So those are, that's a walkthrough. We get to the submission page and everything like that. That's a walkthrough of the application. And now I'm going to stop sharing there and come up to the top and start answering questions. All right, let's see. See and hear you. Boo, 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 boo. Thank you, gorgeous face. I'll take it. Sure. All right. How do we approach questions? How do we approach questions 4 and 5 and 6 if the applicant is in the very beginning of the writing practice career? These are questions on the publications and awards and residencies. I think I answered this, Sula. Let me know if you need more. Really, anything you can say of like, here's how I put out my work, even if it's like a self-published chapbook I think I had. You think broader. So if you're at the very beginning, and you don't have to do 5, if you're like, I'm an emerging writer, and my work is going to be featured in, you can also do that. All right. Let's see. Should writing samples include citations and reference lists, especially if those include prior publications by authors? Hmm. I would say that you want to use as much of your pages to show how you write. So I would not include those. It's not for publication, so it wouldn't need to, you wouldn't need to make sure that you had your citations for the writing sample. I would use your page count to give as much of your own writing as you possibly can. All right. Can you submit a writing sample that is co-authored? That's a great question too. Um, you need to be really, really clear what part of it you authored. And I would say that you could if you could submit like the excerpt that is specifically authored by you, and use the synopsis to say this is it, this is what it is in context, or this is the context for this excerpt. Um, but I would encourage you want it to be your work. You don't want to be judged. You don't want somebody to be reading the application and be like, well, I'm not sure if the person who's applying is actually responsible for this writing. So whatever you need to do to make that very, very clear is important. So yes, and I would say if you have stronger work that is single author, that would be best. Successful applicants should be where on their writing journey? Great question. Like I said, we want emerging to established. We have people who literally do not have anything in publications and awards, have never published anything, including a single, like an individual piece, but are excellent writers. We have people who are very young, who are new to writing at the age of 70. Somebody just got their first residency at Hedgebrook, first time applying, with their first writing sample. So you do not need to be any particular place on your writing journey. You just need to be a really good writer. All right. If I applied last year and felt my writing and statement was strong, is it beneficial to resubmit the same application? So the likelihood that your application would be read by the same group of writers is very, very low. I mean, we have a big pool of readers, and for round one, your application it'll be read by a trio of readers, actually. And then in round two and round three, it's our guest alum judges, and they are new. So they're new each application cycle. So if you feel like you already really nailed that and you have it, then I would say there's nothing wrong with resubmitting it. I would scan it over and see if you've learned anything over this last year that would make it a little bit stronger. Then do we have to work in the category that we submitted? No, you know what? Once you get to Hedgebrook, you don't have to work on anything. You can eat cookies and nap all day if you'd like. Nobody's going to check you for that. It is you just need to be really passionate about whatever you're talking about in that artist statement. So I would say that that's a chance for you to get really excited about what you could possibly do with some time. I would say also that it is not maybe the strongest application to say what I would do at Hedgebrook is spend my time napping and eating cookies, but that might be what you do and nobody will judge you for it. Which genre should I choose if I work in mixed forms? That's a great, yes. This is a great question. It's a hard one to answer. I would say think about if you had 1 or 2 pages of your strongest writing. If you're like, I think this is like the strongest thing I've ever written, what genre is that in? And then if you must, like submit in that genre and then say, here is some other really, really strong writing in other genres or a mixed genre. That's what I would say if it's like, I write in this genre and this genre. If you're writing in like a hybrid form, there's no hard and fast rule. It's what I would say as a poet is that poetry is often the hardest to read and assess well, which is part of why we do readings by genre now, honestly, is because I was like, well, maybe the reason why we have a lot less screenwriters and playwrights and songwriters and poets is than we do fiction and nonfiction is because it's harder to sort of, is that good? Is it just, did I like it or did I not like it? Right. So I would encourage you, if you're writing in mixed or hybrid genres, and it has something, it relies heavily on poetic devices, I would encourage you to lean towards the one that is maybe like, think about whose eyes are on it. That's what I would say. Think about whose eyes on it. Do you want poets to read this because you think poets will get what you're trying to do better? Also, you're being read by our alum, and our alum are mixed genre and hybrid genre and cross genre writers. So yes, there's not a hard and fast answer to that, but that's my suggestion to you. Excuse me for the flumminess here. I published as a poet, but have been working on fiction, and my strongest work is in fiction, although I've yet to publish in this genre. How do I apply? I would say if your strongest work is in fiction, then you should apply in fiction. Yes. And you can talk about, if you need to, or you can talk about just what you can talk about in your artist statement. You could then expand and say, I'm actually known as a poet. This is what I've done, which is why you'll see my awards and recognitions or whatever, or publications and productions or in poetry. You could use some of the artist statement to explain that if you'd like. Or you could say, very briefly, I've been writing for a long time, but I'm new to fiction. However, this is what I've done. This is why I'm so excited about it. This is what I've done so far. This is how I've educated myself. And just keep it really focused on your fiction career. Is it possible to apply to more than one genre? And would you have the potential of being accepted for both or one or the other? I don't believe if you want to pay to apply in multiple genres, I mean, on the numbers game, I guess it gives you a better percentage, but it's a different pool of readers. You wouldn't be accepted to both. We would, if both applications made it to round, you might be, but at some point, you wouldn't get 2 residencies. You might be selected by both genres. And it might move up the chain, but you wouldn't get 2 residencies. Let's see. 2 questions. 1, is there a flash fiction category possible to submit a collection there? Also, 2, can you begin an application, save, and go back to it? Starting backwards. Yes, you absolutely can. In fact, we encourage you to save along the way. There's a save button down at the bottom of each section, each page that you go to. It also auto saves if you're connected to the internet. Slideroom auto saves as you go. But yes, you can go back to it as long as the application is open. Is there a flash fiction category you would submit in fiction? And I would, once again, you can use the synopsis part that you can add on to say, this is what this collection is, or this gives broader context for the pieces that you're going to see in the sample. But yes, you would submit in fiction. I'm known by my given name, but I will be publishing under a pen name. It does not matter at all. And you should do your application in whatever name you want to be called, and whatever name you want them to associate with your application. And that can change tomorrow if you'd like. Be harder to track if it changes tomorrow. Is there a priority difference between 2-week and 3-week stays? No. We try our best to give you what you want, and we will give you what we can, no matter what. If you're selected and we, for some reason, cannot find a 3-week segment that works for you or works for the schedule, but no, we're not like, well, let's schedule all the 2 weeks and then the 3 weeks and see, what we have left. There's no priority there. Are there any memoirists among the nonfiction applicants? There are lots and lots of memoir. We have quite a a library of memoirs from our Hedgebrook alum. So yes, memoirs are thickly seated among our nonfiction application readers. Can the name of the writing sample be the name of the work itself? Yes, as long as it's not your name. What about our book titles? Do we need to redact those to remain anonymous? You do not. So they are expressly and explicitly instructed not to go look you up. So they might recognize your book title, of course, and they might be like, oh my God, that's so cool. Da, da, da. If they are that familiar with you and or your work, they would recuse themselves and that would be reassigned somewhere. But you do not need to worry about redacting your book titles unless they are like, it's like Amber Flame conquers the world. Then maybe, blank conquers the world would be good there. We have kittens, and my 15-year-old is not doing a very good job of keeping them from ruining my life. Okay. Yes, can you get them, please? What does the description of the writing sample entail? Should it be, for example, a selection from planned book? Yeah, so listen, I am for, if you have 1,200 characters, you should try to use them, not to be redundant, but to get into it. Tell us what for, right? So the writing sample, the description of the writing sample is yet another opportunity for you to give context. Before they click on the writing sample, they're going to read this description and be like, okay, it is from a collection of poems. It's already, it's forthcoming. So, somebody's already interested in it maybe, or this is from a new work that is exploring, and then it lets you, without giving more sample, it lets you say, if I was going to give you more, you would read about this and maybe this, and you would see this kind of character development or whatever that is. So yes, use the description to not just say, not just like this is a selection from a planned book, but like the planned book covers blah, 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 explores, and use those character counts to like really get into it. If we're going for screenwriting and submitting other short films we've done, would you want us to remove all the credits or just our specific name off the credits? Just your specific name should do. And I would say before you submit, check in with us and just see if you could. The other thing I would suggest is maybe the sample could be clipped before the credits. That's another option too. Because once again, this is not for dissemination or publication or, like crediting, right? So don't worry about saying, I know who I'm citing and this is who made it. And like your part in it needs to be really, really clear. And maybe the sample can cut before the credits. That's another option. Okay. At what point in the application process do we request a fee waiver? You need to be ready to submit at that point. You need to be ready to click submit, because what is going to happen is that you're going to be ready and you're going to contact them, and they're going to say, okay, we're ready to give you the fee waiver, and you're going to submit, and then they're going to have to do a thing so that you don't get you must pay for this screen next. It's a little bit of a process, which is why we cap it, and why you should be completely ready to submit. Yes, that does put the pressure on you to do your application early, which you should anyway. It's helpful. It's less stressful. What if your sample is a hybrid genre? I think I covered this, but once again, think about whose eyes are going to be on it, who you think would be the best kinds of readers for that genre. If you rely heavily on poetic devices, you might want to apply in poetry, for example. Our applications read as they come in. They are all read after the deadline. What our team does, we don't read and adjudicate the applications, but what we will do sometimes, as we are able to, we will look and see if people are, we'll kind of keep an eye on them as they come in. And if we can catch things like, oh, you submitted this with your name, if you want to resubmit or things like that, we'll try, but there is no guarantee of that. They are all read and adjudicated after the deadline. Can you share more about Hedrick's perspective on equal voice? I've seen different approaches and definitions of this, and you probably will see a different one again. Women-identified folks are still oppressed, and we're still a lot less likely to be published, a lot less likely to be represented, a lot less likely to be produced. Hedgebrook is committed to amplifying women-identified voices so that we're making more noise out in the world. I'm not gonna. I don't want to get too much more into that because I was not prepared to answer that question. But it's the same thing as like what I'm saying around like we want a range of emerging writers and established writers. We want a range of diversity of voice. We want that to really mean like people writing on different perspectives and identities and cultures and experiences. And so I think when and this is Amber Flame speaking, not the official spiel of Hedgebrook. When we are talking about equal voice, we are talking about how many people can we bring forward and how many people can we lift up at once. Is there an age limit? Yes, you must be 18 or older. You must be a legal adult or older to attend. But from there, no. I want to pick fiction, even though my story is based on someone, but the story comes from me. Can I do that? I think that's like what autofiction. I think that's what they called. I'm still learning, but call it fiction. Yeah. Then you can say whatever you need to say, even if it's based on someone, right? Technically. And when you're getting it published, you can talk about the legal ramifications of that. Let's see. Here's one from our emails, I think. Any guidance on what type of work submissions help the judging committee most in their decision-making? Types of work, common mistakes, freshly written versus published work, topics chosen. That's a great question. Not an easy one to answer. As I said, I think when we were talking about the writing sample segment, there's, some judges are like, I love seeing the range that this writer has. And some judges are like, oh my gosh, it was really helpful to see several of what they're writing in the collection, like a collection in, excerpt, right? I would say, especially for prose, you want something that has cohesiveness and movement and action to it. I just keep coming back to like, what is the writing that you've done that you feel so confident about that really just you think that not only represents what you're trying to do, but will knock their socks off. Like if you're like, this is, if I go today, what is the piece I would want them to be like, wow, Amber Flame wrote that? That's the piece I would submit. I think that published works, the risk there is that they can feel dated. So they're not going to know that it's a published work unless you tell them, right? I don't think that is a big sway or like, oh, well, it's already been published, so it's got to be good. I think maybe it's even, they might even be more critical because it's been published. So guidance, your best work, man. Give them your best. The first round is most heavily weighted on the writing sample. So that is the right out the gate, the first thing that they're going to be like, that they're going to be giving you the most points on is going to be your writing. No, the writing sample does not need to be from an unpublished piece or book. Generally aim for in its overall mix of residents in terms of experience level. Okay, in terms of experience level, we would like a mix. It's different every cycle. It's not up to us. We encourage our readers, we encourage our judges to pick a mix of emerging and established, to check their biases around, like what's the work of the editor versus the work of the writer? Like, is the story good? We do a lot of work around that. Other demographics, Hedgebrook has always been committed to having, from the time Nancy Nordoff founded it, having a preponderance of women of color. So that is definitely part of the mission still, is to serve underserved voices. In terms of characteristics, we want somebody who's not going to be an asshole in residency. somebody who wants to be a part of the community after residency and is thinking of themselves as, we want people who are in the business of being transformed, who know what to do with time given to them on the land and exactly how to feed their creative spirit. I hope that's a good enough answer for that one. Let's see. That's okay, Christina. It's fiction. If it's loosely based on somebody, then you're making it up. If you're a graduate, we do not have a graduate student requirement. Once again, you want to make sure that you have, you can be a grad student, that's fine. You want to make sure that you have the time. So I would not recommend that you do it you ask for time during when you're going to have to be in school. We want you to be spending the time on your creative writing, your creative practice. When will acceptance letters go out? Are they sent on a rolling basis or all at one time? I can't remember when the deadline. It's going to be a while. It's going to be months. So it's like 6 weeks after 6 weeks after applications close, round 1 ends. 4 more weeks, round 2 ends. 4 more weeks, round 3 ends. So you're looking at October-ish for acceptance letters to go out. They roll out pretty quickly, one after the other, so all within the same week. So Julie Ann, you're gonna have to don't chew your nails. I'll look at Hedgebrook programs right on it. All notifications will be sent out early November 2025 via Slide Room. Boom, there's your answer. Thanks, Miria. What if I'm writing I'm doing it? Should I? You should not provide screenshots. You should not provide hyperlinks or screenshots, visuals or graphics. They're looking at your writing. Find a sample. I mean, graphic novels is the only place where this is different. Like if it's literally graphic novels, then you can provide you could provide a picture of but that takes up. I'm telling you, if you can do 10. If you can use all your space for the writing, that is going to be the thing that they are going to be looking at the hardest. The visuals, they're not visual artists. There's not a huge contingency of graphic novelists, or illustrators necessarily looking at this. So if the visuals are not necessary, then I would not submit them as part of your writing sample. I'm sorry, I took the first thing as screenshots of your Substack, which also don't do. You want to download a PDF. If you have to include the visuals because you're like, it doesn't work without them, I understand. And yes, a screenshot should be, but not a link. No links. What do strongest applications have in common? Or rather, what makes an application strong? I was going to say, you've read our FAQ. Like, every adjudication, the program's team, after listening to the readers, after listening to the judges, go through an adjudication. We go back through, and anything that we can suggest, we bring it to this and we bring it to the FAQ page. So I would say what I have noticed makes it the strongest. Like I said, I'm really experimenting with using that artist statement place to be really focused on the one project and not like, I'm an artist in all these wonderful ways, aren't I cool? No, to like really, really focus in on the one, which has been a challenge and a growth point for me. That was literally explicit direct advice that I got in different info sessions for other residencies. That's why I'm passing it on. Is I was like, oh, okay, I've heard it twice now. Probably a good point of advice is to stay very focused, use your artist statement, use your writing sample, and to make a cohesive story of who you are as a writer, what you're passionate about working on right now, and what you think you're going to do with your residency time. I think I've seen our judges get really excited about seeing an awareness of who you're in conversation with or inspired by, like where in the canon you see your work, like having a clear vision of that if you have that. And they get really excited about the ways in which this becomes a place where you do advocacy, activist work, anything like that, but that a little bit less so that. I would say definitely let's see, the writing sample, man. That writing sample has got to be on point because that is what they spend time discussing. Like, wow, this is what stood out to me about that they come back to your writing. Should we redact the name of the publication where our writing sample was published? Yes. Good practice. Yes, your writing sample. It can be in your publications and productions segment, but I would keep it out of the pages of your writing sample itself. If I intend to work on a different subgenre within my medium than my sample, rom-com versus horror, is it worth calling attention to that and explaining why? If you're really excited about it, then use your artist statement to talk about why you're moving into a different subgenre. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm excited. I'm like, rom-com versus horror. Okay. What you working on, Jennifer? I'm excited to see it. Okay. If some preferred times are more popular than others, would it be harder to be accepted, or is one accepted first? One is accepted first and then preferred times are looked at. And we are once again always going to try to work. We're going to try to give you one of your top preferred times. How many people apply each year? It shifts. We're moving back from a 2 cycle to a 1 cycle. When we were at 1 cycle before, I think the most people applied, the like top number of applications we got was like 1,600. When we moved to 2 cycles, the top number for a cycle was around 800 and something. So yeah, about 1,600. We're expecting probably 1,100 to 1,600 applications this year. Can you apply if you write in another language other than English? You need to have a really great translation of your work, and yes, you should be explaining that in your synopsis. And if you need some support with that, Renata, I actually would encourage you to reach out directly. All right. What if someone writes bilingually? Is English the only language? So our readers are readers in English. You would definitely need to have a good translation available. And like I said to Renata, please reach out directly to make sure that I'm not misspeaking completely there of what you might need. All right. Once again, all notifications, thank you, will be sent out early November 2025 via SlideRoom. All right, we're coming down to the end of it. Let's see. Writing synopsis description. Should we stick to technical details about the work, like plot info, where the piece is excerpted from, or should this include themes or inspiration, etc.? I think a lot of that is actually will probably show up. Will probably be what you write about in your artist statement segments. And also, I always, because I see the back end of it, I always go to like, imagine you have a stack of like 30 applications. I would want the synopsis to be something that is like, oh, cool. Whatever's going to make me want to really read that writing sample. That's what I would use the writing synopsis and description for. That's what I'm saying. It's like, get us excited about the writing sample that's to come. And don't forget to brag on the cool technical stuff that you did. Like if you're like, I'm deploying this device, like I created a poetic form, absolutely talking about, I created a poetic form and it's this, and this is what you're going to see. So yes, don't stick to just technical details. Definitely include like, this is the broader context, like I said, of the writing sample you're about to experience. Is it common for writers to pair up to give critiques to each other? Like just in writing world, I'm guessing, yes. Writing community is, as I say at almost everything, it takes one person showing up at the same time each time until 2 people start showing up, and then 3 people, and then you have a writing group. But yes, I absolutely count on my writer friends to critique my work and give me feedback on what is and isn't working. Like I said, they're my readers and I'm their reader. So it's a constant exchange and learning. Mira Jacob, I always quote her too. She always says that when you meet writers, you should ask them questions. Like you should always ask your fellow writers questions because you will learn so much. Oh, during the residency, silly me. Sorry. I'm like, whew. Anyway, thank you for clarifying, Em. Um, it is pretty common. So often there's, the library, the alum library is right off from the farmhouse table. So after dinner or brunch on Sundays, the writers will often meet and share work or read pages. That it's not guaranteed and it's not an organized, but we do offer the Liz Lerman critique paperwork and stuff like that. So if you're interested in that kind of a feedback critique session, I've been involved with groups who really got into it and spent hours together, like critiquing work. And I've been with people who are like, hey, do you want to do a little reading? And it was very casual and informal. So it is common that you and your cohort will find something around sharing work that you want to do together. What happens during the residency out of the day of writing by day community meals? There is beautiful land to walk on, and there's a beach to walk to. There's land walks on Fridays and a market run on Fridays. And other than that, it is solitude. Yeah, so there are no expectations of attending. There might be visitors to the land, but they shouldn't be disrupting you and your residency time. Oh, this is when yes. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited for those of you who have like food preferences and or needs, because our chefs are so good at this. Like it is not the special foods table. It is not everything but the thing that you can't eat. It's like they curate everybody's stay so that you always have a delicious and delectable spread of a meal that meets all your needs, so you do not have to worry about that. Yes. The title of your book, you don't have to worry about the title of your book unless it literally has your name. Like if it's Elena Johnson Saves the World, then you want to say blank saves the world. You want to redact that part. But it's not going to be a problem if you have your writing sample from your published book and you want to include a title in it as the title of your writing sample and everything. That's totally fine. Sorry, I wasn't clear before. Right. Mm-hmm. So I would really lean into the synopsis here, Cielo. I don't know if there's a better. I think you go back to like, is this really, really strong work? Is this my strongest work? Whatever is your strongest work, and then use that synopsis and or description to say, this is what the context that you'll need to have for why these pieces are coming together. Why I'm putting this as a sample for how I'm doing my reading, how I'm doing my application. Whew. Okay. I'm running out of steam, guys. Okay. So if there are more questions that haven't been answered, the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is go and look at our FAQ page. Miria, would you be able to drop it into the chat so it's right there for you all? Go and use our website. It is a source. There are blogs on there written by alum that will everything from like knocking on Hedgerock's door, people applying 11, 20 times. Like I know people who have applied over and over. I was one of them. Really strongly encourage you to get started on this application early so that if you do have questions, you have time to both ask them and we have time to get you an answer. We are a very, very, very small team and we are going to do our best to assist you through this. But there's like 1,100 to 1,600 applications coming in. So do not wait until the last minute, especially if you're worried and an anxious anxiety person. There are other info sessions I may have been more articulate in sharing best practices and everything like that. So if that's soothing to you, then you can listen to my dulcet tones in 2022 telling you about our application. But this is the most current application. So anything I said about that isn't true, sorry, it's not true anymore. Thank you so much. Good luck. We couldn't do this if you weren't applying. We wouldn't be doing this if you weren't applying. It matters so much to us that you're here. Yeah, I think that's it. How many acceptances? It depends, but we look to it's somewhere between 60 and 80 new writers every year. Um, all right, that's it for me. Thank you so much. You can find this on our YouTube channel if you want to review back to it. It should be there once I end this stream. All right, take care, everyone.